So, as promised, let's have a little look at the second right or privilege, which is mentioned about us in those early verses in Galatians chapter 4. Verse 7 says, "So you are no longer a slave, but a son, and if a son, then an heir through God." So this second status, this second privilege, this second right which has become ours because we've been adopted in God's family, is that we're given the status as heirs. Now, when the Apostle Paul was writing to the church at Rome, in Romans 8 he mentions this, that we are joint heirs with Christ, co-heirs with him. And what does Christ inherit? Well, Hebrews 1 tells us that God has appointed him heir of all things. And we have this privilege of having joint status. We're joint heirs, co-heirs with Christ, who is the heir of all things. Now, if you're an heir, it usually means you've been written into someone's will, and that has a couple of implications. The first one is this: usually if someone writes you into their will, it's because they love you. They care about you, you're valued to them, you're precious to them, they want to leave you something. And that's, I think, the same with God. Because we are valued to him, because he delights in us, he has given us this status as heirs. And if we are joint heirs with Christ, the indication is that he values us and delights in us as much as he values and delights in his own Son, Jesus Christ. The second implication is, usually if people write you into their will, it's because they want to leave you something or give you something. And usually that's something, whether it's money or property or something else valuable, it's usually they want to leave you something to help you going forward, to provide for you in your future, to resource you from the point at which they pass away, that they give you something that will help you going forward. And I think the second implication of God making us his heirs is this: his desire to provide for us, his desire to resource us going forward. Now, usually you only receive the benefit of a will once that person has passed away. And Hebrews 9 suggests to us that when Christ died on the cross, he activated the will of God for us. Now, there are parts of that inheritance that we are due, that we will only get when we get to heaven. Peter, in his first letter, he says that there is an inheritance reserved or kept in heaven for us, an imperishable and undefiled, unfading inheritance. But because Christ has died for us, I think there is another aspect whereby the will of God has been activated for us now, so that the resources that we need for today and going forward are made available to us. In fact, when the Apostle Paul was writing to the Christians at Philippi to thank them for their generosity to him, his response was to say, "But my God is able to meet all your needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus." So God has made us heirs, and that tells us that he both delights in us and desires to provide for us. What a privilege it is ours to be heirs of God, joint heirs with Christ. In the next instalment, perhaps I'll just share a little illustration which sometimes I use just to help grasp and understand these privileges and rights that we have mentioned in this chapter. God bless.